Okay, we are moving on to adding and subtracting rationals, and oopsies, we're not in our fourth unit. We are in our third unit lesson of Unit 3, so call it 3C. We're going to add and subtract rationals, specifically fractions, though. I can add and subtract positive and negative rationals with variables. We are focused solely on fractions today. Which is a rational number, but there's more than just fractions that are rational. So that's why I want to clear that. Just a reminder that you must have a common denominator. Okay? Just a little friendly reminder. And then you need to be careful to follow your integer rules. And maybe I'm going to just briefly put them on there. If you remember them by heart, that's fine. But I am going to put it on there. If they're the same sign, you add it. If they're different signs, you subtract it. If it is a minus sign, you plus a negative or plus plus. So those are my integer rules. Well, addition rules. I'm not doing multiplication rules. Okay, so 6 and 9/10 plus 4 and 4/5. I can't add them together because they don't have a common denominator. So I'm going to turn my 5 into a 10. I times 5 by 2 to get to 10. So 4 times 2 is 8. Add your fractions, or add your numerators and then your whole numbers. So 9 plus 8 is 17 over 10. 6 and 4 is 10. Now I need to regroup. 10 goes into 17 another whole time. I already have 10 wholes, so now I have 11 of them. 7 remains, 10 as the denominator. Did it. Okay, so that's more of the 6th grade level of adding fractions. Now we're going to move to the 7th grade level when we're dealing with integers as well. So I'm going to plus a negative here because of the minus sign. I'm going to get a common denominator of what? 18. Okay. I times 9 by 2. So I'm going to times 6 by 2. So negative what? 12 times 2 by 9 times negative 1 by 9. So that's a negative 9. So I'm just putting it all on the numerator for a second while I think about this, because otherwise sometimes I can get mixed up. Negative 12 plus a negative 9 all over 18. And now I'll just find that sum. They're the same sign, so I'm going to add them up. 12 plus 9 is 21, right? Negative 21 over 18. And now I regroup. 18 goes into 21 one whole time. So you just put the, notice how my negative is just trailing along. It's just along for the ride. As you just can't make it disappear unless you're multiplied and there's 2. And then what remains? 3 over 18, which is negative 1 and 1/6. Holy moly. That's a lot of work, don't you think?
Yeah.
Negative 2 9ths plus 1 and 1/4. So I need to get a common D. So a common D is what? 36. 36. 9 times 4 is 36. Negative 2 times 4 is what? Negative 8. And this is going to be 9. Okay. So now I'm going to just rewrite what I have. Negative 8 over 36 plus 1 and 9 over 36. You can't go negative 8 plus 9. You can't. So if you're thinking go negative 8 plus 9, you can't. They are different signs. Different signs means you take the difference. The bigger absolute value, take away the smaller. So what I have to do here is 1 and 9, 36, take away 8, 36, which is what? 1 over 36. 1 minus 0 is 1. I have more positives, so it's 1 and 136. Next one, turn it to plus plus. It's a plus plus situation. Negative 6 sevenths plus 3 fourths. Common D. Common D. 4 times 7 is 28. 3 times 7 is 21. Times both of them by 4 on this other one, so I have negative 24. So negative 24 plus 21 all over 28. Negative 3 over 28. Notice that I really did take their difference because they're different signs. So I went 24 minus 21 is 3, and I have more negatives. And then you can't forget about whole number examples because they're there.
Yeah.
So I plus a negative, put a 1 on the denominator. The reason I put a 1 there is because I need an 8 on the bottom. So I'm going to turn this into an 8. And then a negative 32 would go on top. Then you get 3 plus a negative 32 all over 8. What's that? That would be 29 negative. Negative 29 over 8. Regroup. 8 goes into 29 a total of 4 times, so I'm going to say negative 4. Just kidding, negative 3, oopsies. Negative 3. 5 left over, 8 as the denominator. If they're the same sign and you add it, it's so much easier. Be nice to yourself if you can be easy, because fractions take forever. So if you can be nice to yourself, you be nice to yourself. They're the same sign, so I just add them up. You need technically a common denominator, but when you have a whole number, you just smush the fraction to the whole number. Like 3 plus 2/3, 3 and 2/3. Okay, so here I see they're the same sign, so I'm just going to smush the fraction to my whole number. Negative 8 and 3/7. I can only do that because they're the same sign. But be nice to yourself if you can, okay? Because you will be doing lots of work. Subtracting with regrouping. That's our next thing. So if you can borrow from a whole, you must borrow from a whole instead of making the numerators go negative. So if you can borrow a whole, you need to do that. So you need to borrow a whole if you can. Sometimes you can't. But if you can borrow a whole, you need to borrow one. And a whole is whatever the denominator is. The denominator makes the whole. Like 3/4, 4 parts to a whole. 5/8, 8 parts to a whole. Okay? All right. So I want to take this difference. 2 1/2 minus 1 3/4. So I'm going to turn it to a common D. I'm going to rewrite it so my numbers aren't super smushed together. So 2 2/4 minus 1 3/4. You always got to do your fractions first. Can I take 3 away from 2? And you might want to say -1. If you can't borrow, you would say -1. But here I need to borrow. So since I can borrow, I'm going to say, hey, 2, give me a whole. And the 2 is like, fine. How many parts to the whole? 4 parts. So I already have 2 parts. I'm adding a whole more, so I have a total of 6 parts now. Remember this last year, maybe? So now I have 1 6/4 minus 1 3/4. 6 minus 3 is 3 over 4. I have no wholes left. Okay, 5 6. Okay, wait, let me restate that. 5 5/6 minus 3 6/7. So I'm going to take a common D. I kind of want to put my common D below because the numbers are getting all crazy. So 42 6 times 7 is 42, so 5 times 7 is 35. Minus, now I want a 42 down here. 7 times 6 is 42. 6 times 6 is 36, and then the 3 wholes. So now you gotta subtract the numerators. Can I take 36 away from 35? No. And I can borrow, so I have to borrow. So I'm saying, hey, 5, give me a whole. Okay. How many parts to my whole? 42 parts. And I have 35. So now all the parts I have is 77? 77 parts. My goodness. So now I have 4. 4 and 77 over 42 minus 3 and 36 over 42. 7 minus 6 is 1. 7 minus 3 is what? 4. 4 wholes, take away 3 wholes is 1 whole left. And that's our lesson. So you regroup if you can. If you can't, you go ahead and make it go into the negative. But if you go into the negative and if you can borrow, you must borrow.